The chirping of birds mingled with the sound of water flowing from the fountain in Harmony Park, a community park in Santa Rosa, California, where I, Eleanor, 50 years old, stood among the vibrant hydrangea beds I had meticulously designed. As a landscape architect, I had spent 2 decades transforming empty plots of land into green spaces where children ran the elderly, sat and chatted under oak trees, and families found joy in peaceful afternoons. Harmony Park, with its winding stone paths and native flower gardens, had just won the 2025 Sustainable Design Award, a milestone I was proud of. That day was a Saturday morning in June, with soft sunlight streaming through the trees, and I was reviewing the plans for a new project, a larger park in Sacramento, where I hoped to bring smiles to thousands of people. My team, a group of young engineers and botanists, gathered nearby, laughing as they discussed adding more red maple trees. I felt lighthearted, as if all the struggles in my life, from late nights to budget battles, had dissolved in the hues of the plants. I thought of my mother Lillian, who always loved gardens, and smiled as I imagined how proud she would be if she saw this park. My phone buzzed in my pocket, a message from my brother James. I opened it with a smile, thinking it was a congratulatory message for the award, or perhaps a dinner invitation, something he occasionally did to keep in touch. James, my 55-year-old brother, was always busy with his real estate investment work, but I still hoped he noticed my successes. But when I read the message, I felt the air drain from me, each word like a sharp knife. Eleanor, don't even think about the inheritance. I've taken care of the will. Everything is mine, from the Napa house to the investment fund. You're too weak, not strong enough to manage it. Don't bother me. Go deal with your silly parks. I stood there, gripping my phone tightly, my breath heavy, my eyes clouding with seething anger. James, my brother, with whom I once shared my childhood, who had once picked grapes in the garden with me, now mocked me, called me weak, and stole the inheritance my parents Thomas and Lillian had promised to share. Equally, I looked out at the park where a group of children played on the seesaw and felt like my heart was being squeezed. But then I thought of my mother, of what she had said. Eleanor, you're a creator, not a destroyer. I whispered to myself, James, you're wrong, completely wrong, and I will make you see it, not with tears, not with resentment, but with a plan that will make you regret underestimating me. I didn't respond to the message. Instead, I sat down on a wooden bench near the fountain, opened my laptop, and checked old emails between me and James, the clues I had saved since I first suspected him. I called Olivia, a brilliant lawyer, a colleague had recommended, known for her ability to handle complex inheritance cases. Olivia, I need to meet with you immediately, I said, my voice trembling but firm. My brother just stole my inheritance, called me weak, and I want to get back what's mine. Not just for me, but because I want him to face the truth. Olivia replied, her voice warm. Eleanor, come to my office right now and bring everything you've got. We'll start from here. I stood up, took a deep breath, and looked at the hydrangeas swaying in the wind. I knew this journey wouldn't be easy, but I was ready. Have you ever been betrayed by a loved one just because they thought you were too weak? I've been there, but what I did next is what will shock my brother. The cracks between James and me didn't appear overnight. They had been creeping in for a long time, like the cracks in an old wall you try to paint over, hoping to hide the truth that it's crumbling. Growing up in Santa Rosa, James and I were once close friends, running around the yard, listening to our father tell stories about the vineyards in Napa, where he dreamed of opening a small farm. James, 5 years older than me, was always the leader, protecting me when the neighborhood kids teased me. But as we entered adulthood, he changed. James became a real estate investor with expensive suits, luxury cars, and a cold gaze when talking about money and power. I chose a different path, becoming a landscape architect, loving the work of creating parks where people could find joy. Our parents, Thomas and Lillian, always treated us fairly, teaching us that the inheritance, the vacation home in Napa, the investment fund from my father's business, and a plot of land in Sonoma would be divided equally. Your family, you must support each other, my mother once said, holding my and James' hands one summer evening. But after our parents passed away 3 years ago, James began acting strangely. He took control of the family's joint accounts, saying I was too busy with my parks to understand how to manage the assets. I remember one evening when I suggested looking at the will. James smirked, his eyes gleaming with contempt. Eleanor, you don't need to worry about this. I'll handle it. You just keep doing your artsy stuff. Don't make me worry about it. I felt uneasy, but I trusted him because he was my brother, and I thought family wouldn't betray each other. The clearest sign came a year ago when I overheard James talking to a friend during a family meeting. Eleanor doesn't have the capacity to manage the assets. She only knows about plants. Let me handle everything, otherwise she'll ruin it all. Those words cut deep, but I didn't confront him. Instead, I began acting quietly like I do when planning a park. I saved every email, every message, and set up a separate account to protect the income from my work. From projects like Harmony Park. I didn't want to believe James would go this far, but I wasn't naive. I remember one afternoon when my mother was still alive, sitting with me in the garden, looking at the rose bushes she had planted and saying, Eleanor, you are a creator, not a destroyer. Don't let anyone take your light, not even those you love. Her words were like a flame keeping me sharp when facing James's change. I began taking notes on every detail, from how he delayed the distribution of assets to his repeated comments that I was too weak. I thought of my father, who had always been proud, when I won design awards, and told myself I can't disappoint them. James's message that day, calling me too weak, wasn't just a betrayal. It was a challenge, as if he was daring me to step into a battle. I sat in my small office looking at the photo of my parents on my desk and whispered, James thinks I'm weak, but he doesn't know what I've been preparing. He doesn't know how I've learned to protect myself. I opened my laptop, checked the documents I had saved, and felt a new strength. James's message hit like a tidal wave, but I didn't let it drown me. I drove to Olivia's office in downtown Santa Rosa, a small building with clear glass doors and potted plants I had designed for her as a thank you gift. Olivia, with her short silver-dyed hair and sharp eyes like a strategist, invited me to sit, placing a hot cup of coffee in front of me. I told her everything from James's cruel message, how he mocked me, to the years I had felt belittled for choosing a different path. Olivia, I need you to help me get my inheritance back, I said, my voice trembling but full of determination. James thinks I'm weak, thinks I'll give up, but I want him to face the truth. I want him to see that I'm not someone he can toy with. Olivia listened, taking quick notes, and replied in her warm voice, Eleanor, I've handled many inheritance cases, and I know when someone is hiding something. Bring me all the documents, emails, and messages you have, and I'll find James's weak spot. We're not just going to take back what's yours. We'll make him regret underestimating you. But the crisis wasn't over. A week later, I received a notification from the bank that the family's joint account, where I thought there was still a portion of the inheritance, had been drained. James had transferred all the money, over $1 million, into a personal account, and I no longer had access. I sat in my car, parked in front of Harmony Park, watching the children play on the grass, feeling like everything I had built was crumbling. I thought of my father, who always said, Eleanor, you have a strong heart, don't let anyone take it away. I couldn't let him down. I called Olivia, my voice firm. Olivia, James just drained the money from the joint account. I need you to find out what he's done, and I want to sue. Not just to get the assets back, but to show him I'm not as weak as he thinks. Olivia laughed on the phone. Eleanor, I've already started the investigation, and I have a feeling James wasn't as careful as he thinks. Meet me tomorrow and you'll see what we can do. Inside, I was still struggling. I thought about the nights I worked late, wondering if I was strong enough, if my park design work was meaningful enough to compare with the skyscrapers James boasted about. But then I remembered one morning when an elderly woman in the park hugged me, tears in her eyes, thanking me for creating a place where she could remember her late husband. That moment reminded me that I was not weak, that my work had value. I returned to the office, opened my laptop, and checked old emails between me and James, words I had saved like a shield. Olivia emailed that night with a short message. Eleanor, I found some documents. Meet me tomorrow, we'll make a plan. And I promise James won't know what's happening until it's too late. I smiled, though my heart still felt heavy. I stood in the park, looking at the lights, lighting up the paths, and thought about my mother, about her smile when she planted flowers. I wrote a note. The day I found an ally, I knew I was not alone. Do you think family can hurt you deeper than an enemy? I thought so. But what Olivia discovered was even more astonishing. I arrived at Olivia's office the next morning carrying a cup of coffee and a heart full of anxiety, but also filled with hope. Olivia laid out a thick folder on the table, her eyes sparkling like an explorer who had just found treasure. Eleanor James didn't just withdraw money from the joint account. She said, her voice sharp but calm. He forged your signature on a revised will, transferring all the inheritance, the vacation home in Napa, the land in Sonoma, and the $2 million investment fund to his name. But he made a big mistake. The fake will was filed at an unauthorized notary office in Oakland, and I found an email he sent to a notary employee, bribing them $10,000 to complete this. Furthermore, I have a recording from a call that James accidentally left in the notary's voicemail, admitting that you would never find out. I was stunned, gripping my coffee cup, feeling as though the blood in my body froze. James hadn't just betrayed me. He had broken the law, thinking I was too weak to realize, too naive to fight back. My internal monologue exploded. James thinks I'm weak, thinks I'll bow down and give up. But he doesn't know how far I've come, doesn't know the nights I stayed up to perfect the park design, doesn't know how I've learned to protect myself. He wants to take it all. I'll take it back. Not just the assets, but my self-respect. And I'll do it in a way that will make him bow to the truth. I looked at Olivia, my voice firm. Olivia, I want to sue James not just to get back what's mine, but to make him face the consequences of his selfishness. But I also want to do something bigger, like you said. Turn this asset into a legacy not just for me, but for the community. So James will see that he was wrong to call my park nonsense. Olivia smiled, her eyes sparkling. Eleanor, with this evidence, James has no chance in court. But your idea of a legacy, that's the most beautiful form of revenge. I'll help you from the trial to the legacy plan. Are you ready? I nodded, feeling like a flame ignited in my heart. I thought about my mother, about how she always loved gardens, always said they brought people together. I imagined using the inheritance to build a series of community parks where people could find joy just as my mother wanted. That idea was like a light, cutting through the fog of pain. But deep down, I was still afraid. I wondered if I was strong enough to face James, if I could turn this pain into something great. I remembered one evening when I sat with my father and he said, Eleanor, you have a strong heart. Don't let anyone take it away, not even those you love. Those words were like a pillar. I opened my laptop, checked the documents Olivia sent, and saw James's bribery email, each word like a bullet. I wrote a note in my notebook. The day I knew the truth, I decided not just to win, but to create an everlasting legacy. Have you ever discovered a secret that made you want to change the world? I was standing on the threshold, and the moment of confrontation was closer than I thought. The trial was still a month away, but I wanted to confront James first, not to argue, but to show him that I was not someone he could underestimate. I invited him to Harmony Park, the place I had poured my sweat and soul into creating. We stood among the hydrangea flower beds with the sound of water flowing from the fountain as a background melody. James, in his expensive suit, his gaze arrogant, sneered. "Eleanor, did you call me out here to ask for the assets back? Forget it, you can't manage them, and I've done what's best for the family. You should thank me instead of wasting time with these ridiculous parks." I took a deep breath, looked straight into his eyes, my voice calm but sharp as a knife. "James, you think you've won, think I'm weak and will give up. But you're wrong. I know about the fake will, the bribery email, and the voicemail you left. I've hired a lawyer, and the truth will be exposed in court. You can keep up your arrogant attitude, but I will take back what's mine, not because I need the money, but because I want you to face your own selfishness. And when I do that, I'll turn this asset into something you'll never understand, a gift for the community, not a pile of money for you to flaunt." James turned pale, his eyes wavering, but he still tried to smile. "Are you threatening me? Try it, Eleanor, but you'll lose like always. You don't have the guts to fight me." I didn't answer, just smiled, thinking about Olivia and the folder waiting in court. I returned to the office, met Olivia, and she said, "Eleanor, the trial will be your stage. We're not just reclaiming assets, we'll make James see that he misjudged his opponent. I've prepared everything from witnesses to recordings. He doesn't stand a chance." I nodded, feeling like a warrior preparing for battle. That night I stood in Harmony Park, looking at the lights lighting up the paths, and thought about my parents, about how they always believed in fairness. I imagined the moment I stood before the judge, not with resentment, but with pride for having fought for what was mine. I thought about my mother, about her smile when she planted roses, and told myself, I'll do this for my mother, for my father, and for myself. I returned home, opened my notebook, and wrote a note. The day I confronted James, I knew I would win, not just in court, but in my own heart. But that moment wasn't the end. I knew the trial would be tough, that James wouldn't give up easily. I thought about my team, about the people who had supported me through the dark days, and felt a new strength. I opened my laptop, saw an email from Olivia with the message, "Eleanor, we're ready, get ready to shine. Do you think justice can come when you stand up with all your strength?" I did it, but the real victory was even greater than I imagined. The trial took place in a courthouse in Santa Rosa, in a room with dark wood walls and a solemn atmosphere, as if the whole world was waiting for the verdict. I walked in wearing a green dress, the color of the parks I loved. My gaze proud, but my heart still pounding. James sat on the other side in a gray suit, his eyes avoiding mine, next to his lawyer. A man with fake confidence, as if he knew he was at a disadvantage. Olivia stood up, presenting the evidence with the precision of an artist creating a masterpiece, the fake will with an inconsistent signature, James's bribery email, and the voicemail recording. Where James laughed, "Eleanor will never know, she's too busy with the trees." Olivia said, "Your Honor, my client, Ms. Eleanor Bennett, has been systematically deceived by her brother, Mr. James Bennett, who forged her signature to seize inheritance assets worth over $2 million, including the house in Napa, the land in Sonoma, and the investment fund. We request the full restoration of the assets to Ms. Eleanor, along with compensation for emotional and financial damages." James's lawyer countered, his voice trembling. "Your Honor, this is a family dispute, not a criminal matter. Mr. James was only protecting the property from Mrs. Eleanor's mismanagement. Someone with no financial experience." Olivia smiled faintly, her gaze sharp as a knife. Mismanagement. Mrs. Eleanor is a nationally award-winning landscape architect with the Harmony Park, transforming the Santa Rosa community. Mr. James, on the other hand, forged a will, bribed a notary, and drained the joint account. As these emails and recordings prove, Olivia projected the email onto the screen, and I could hear murmurs from the courtroom. The judge, a woman with a stern expression, turned to James. "Mr. Bennett, do you deny forging the will or bribing the notary?" James stammered, his voice weak. I just wanted to protect the family's property. I had no bad intentions." The judge cut him off, her voice cold. by deceiving your sister and breaking the law. The court rules that Mrs. Eleanor Bennett is to have the entire inheritance restored, including the house, the land, and the investment funds. Mr. James Bennett is to pay $500,000 for emotional and financial damages and will be further investigated for bribery. I left the courtroom, my head held high, not looking back at James. Though I could feel his regretful gaze, Olivia hugged me outside the court. Beaming, "Eleanor, you didn't just win, you've paved the way for a bigger legacy. Now let's get started on your park project." I smiled, feeling as though a heavy burden had been lifted. I thought about my parents, about how they always believed in fairness, and imagined them smiling somewhere. I drove to Harmony Park, stood amidst the flower beds, and thought of my mother, of her smile when she planted roses. I opened my notebook and wrote a note. The day I reclaimed justice, I began building a future no one could take away. But this victory was not just about the property. I knew I had a chance to do something bigger, to turn pain into a gift for the world. I called the team, sharing. We'll build a new series of parks to honor my parents and to remind people that no one can snuff out our light. Do you think legal victory could be the beginning of something great? I did it, but what I did next would make James truly regret his actions. Leaving the court, I drove to Harmony Park, sat on the familiar wooden bench near the fountain, and let the tears fall, not out of anger or resentment, but from the sadness of realizing that James had never truly been my brother, not in the way I had once hoped. I thought about my father, about what he said. "Eleanor, you have a strong heart. Don't let anyone take it, even those you love." His words were like a fire warming me through the dark days. I thought about the years when James and I were young, picking grapes in the garden, when he promised he would always protect me. Now those memories felt like a torn painting, but I didn't want to hold on to the pain forever. That night, I sat in my small apartment, opened my notebook, and wrote a letter to myself. "Eleanor, you don't need James's recognition. You don't need him to shine. You fought, you won, and now you'll use your inheritance to create a legacy not just for you, but for millions of others. You are the creator, just like Mom said." That act, simple yet powerful, felt like a turning point, helping me heal. The next day, I called Olivia. "Olivia, I want to use the inheritance to build a series of community parks, starting in Santa Rosa, called Lillian Park, to honor my mother. I want everyone to have a place to find joy, to remember that life is worth living despite the betrayals." Olivia laughed on the phone. "Eleanor, that's the most beautiful revenge I've ever heard, turning James's selfishness into a gift for the world. I'll help you from setting up the fund to getting permits. Are you ready to change the world?" I nodded, though she couldn't see, and felt a new strength. I thought about all the times I doubted myself, the nights. I wondered if I was strong enough to face James, if my work was meaningful enough. But now, looking at the plans for Lillian Park with gardens, fountains, and a memorial area, I knew I had found the light. I got to work immediately, holding meetings with the team, hiring more engineers, and reaching out to sponsors. I stood in Harmony Park, watching children play on the grass, and imagined thousands of parks like this springing up across California, each park a testament that I was not weak, that I could create something everlasting. I thought about my mother, about how she always found joy in the little things, like a rose blooming. I wanted to live like her, not for the victory, but for the joy of creating. My team, from engineers to horticulturists, supported me wholeheartedly. One afternoon, a young engineer, Emma, said, "Eleanor, you make me believe I can do something great, even though my family says I'm not good enough." Her words were a gift, reminding me that my journey wasn't just about me. I opened my notebook, wrote a note. The day I healed, I found purpose. Not just for me, but for the world. Have you ever turned pain into a gift for someone else? I did, and it led me to a place I never expected. I used my inheritance, the house in Napa, the land in Sonoma, and the investment fund, to establish the Lillian Foundation, a nonprofit organization that funds community parks throughout California. Lillian Park. The first park opened a year after the trial on the land in Sonoma that James had once wanted to sell to build an apartment complex. The park features hydrangea beds, a large fountain, and a memorial garden where people carve the names of their deceased loved ones. The opening ceremony took place on a spring morning with hundreds of attendees, from children to the elderly. Along with my team and donors, I stood on a small stage wearing a white dress and said, "Lillian Park is my gift to my mother, who taught me that a garden can heal the heart. My brother James thought I was weak, thought I couldn't fight. But today, this park is proof that I not only reclaimed what was mine, but also turned it into a joy for all of us." The crowd clapped, and I saw tears in many people's eyes. James attended the opening, standing in a distant corner, his gaze filled with regret, no longer full of arrogance. After the ceremony, he came up, his voice quiet. "Eleanor, I was wrong. I didn't expect you could do this. Didn't expect you to be so strong. I'm sorry." I looked at him, my voice calm. "James, you thought you took everything, but you gave me the chance to create something greater. Lillian Park is proof that I am not weak, and I don't need your apology to move forward, but I hope you learned something from this." James lowered his head, said nothing, and walked away. I didn't feel triumphant, just relieved, as if I had let go of a burden. Lillian Park became a symbol praised by the media, from local newspapers in Santa Rosa to national design magazines. I received hundreds of thank you letters from people saying the park helped them rediscover joy. One elderly woman, Martha, took my hand during a visit and said, "Eleanor, this park helps me remember my husband every day. You've given me a place to heal." Her words were a gift, reminding me that I did the right thing. I thought of my father, how proud he always was when I planted trees and imagined him smiling somewhere. The Lillian Foundation continued to grow with plans to build 5 more parks in the next 2 years. I opened my notebook and wrote a note. The day I built my legacy, I saw my parents smile, and I knew I had won. Do you think a kind act can change a whole community? I've seen it, and it changed me forever. The Lillian Foundation expanded rapidly, funding 10 new parks in 3 years, from Santa Rosa to San Diego. I began hosting free workshops, teaching women landscape design, helping them find the confidence to pursue their dreams. One member, Sarah, came up to me after a workshop, her voice trembling. "Eleanor, my family says I'm useless for wanting to work with plants, but you helped me start my own business, and now I'm designing parks for a small town. You are my inspiration." Her words were like a breeze blowing away all the remaining doubts inside me. I hosted a large charity event at Lillian Park, raising $200,000 for local schools, with thousands of people participating, from children drawing on the grass to volunteers planting new trees. Santa Rosa was filled with stories of me, from local papers to social media posts, calling me the woman who turned betrayal into hope. But it wasn't always smooth. Once, a donor criticized me for being too ambitious, saying I should focus on one park instead of expanding. I listened, invited a project management expert to join, and the Lillian Foundation grew stronger. I thought of my mother, how she always helped others, even when life was tough. I began spending weekends teaching children to plant trees, and one boy, Liam, said, "Ms. Eleanor, I want to build parks like you when I grow up." His words were like a star lighting my path. I called Olivia. "Olivia, I want the Lillian Foundation to expand nationwide. Do you think we can do it?" Olivia laughed. "Eleanor, with your heart and talent, nothing is impossible." I opened my notebook and wrote a note. The day I spread light, I saw the world shine brighter, and I knew I was living my parents' dream. Do you think a community can heal the deepest wounds? I've seen it, and it led me to a bright future. 5 years after James's harsh message, I stood on stage at a landscape design conference in San Francisco before a crowd of hundreds with eager eyes, from young architects to environmental activists. I wore a red dress, the color of the flame my father used to say I carried inside me and shared. My brother called me weak, stole my inheritance, thinking I would fall. But I turned that pain into the Lillian Foundation, building parks that bring joy to millions from Santa Rosa to San Diego. I didn't do it for James, but because I knew my worth, because I wanted to live my parents' dream, the ones who believed a garden could change the world. The crowd clapped, and I saw tears glistening in many eyes. During the Q&A, a young audience member, her voice trembling, asked, "How do I fight when my family turns their back when they say, 'I'm not good enough'?" I looked at her, smiled, and replied, "Start with a small step, a dream you won't give up on, a skill you learn to prove. You are strong enough. Your worth doesn't need anyone's recognition, just your belief." Every park I built was a small step, and now they are a legacy. You can do it too. The conference ended with applause, but the moment I remember most is when Sarah from my workshop ran up to hug me and said, "Eleanor, because of you, I'm living my dream with my own company and my first park. You've changed my life." I hugged her, feeling as if I was embracing the whole world. The Lillian Foundation now funds 20 parks with a team of 50 people, from engineers to volunteers, and is internationally recognized with a Global Environmental Award. James lives quietly in Napa, occasionally sending letters of apology. But I don't reply, not because of resentment, but because I've found peace. I keep his messages in a small frame with the words, "Your strength is a flame no one can extinguish." At the Lillian Foundation's 5-year anniversary celebration, I stood before the community and said, "I once thought family defined me, but I define myself, and each of us has the right to paint our own life's picture." I thought of my parents, how they always believed in me, and imagined them smiling in the gardens I built. Life, like a park, requires perseverance, strategy, and faith. There are days when you feel invisible, but remember, you are the one creating the future. What will you do to fight for what belongs to you, even when no one believes in you? I did it, and I know you can too.